Well, the US and Russia have set out firm lines ahead of talks on Ukraine, with Washington warning of the risk of confrontation and Moscow ruling out concessions. Joining us now is political analyst and professor at Curtin University, Joe Siracusa. Professor, good morning. Thank you for joining us. What can we expect ahead of these crucial talks in Geneva?
Good morning, Tanika. Well, look, I think your comments there are perfectly correct. No one wants to move on this one. Washington wants the Russians to de-escalate, and the Russians want a guarantee that Ukraine will never join NATO, and that they can get some kind of security on their borderlands there. And over the weekend, I mean, as you know, the Russians moved into Kazakhstan with 2,500 troops to put down an uprising there. So they take their borderlands very, very seriously. There's going to be a series of rolling negotiations in Geneva and in Brussels and in Vienna about what to do about this. The United States is meeting in Geneva right about now with the Americans and the Russians meeting right now, and the American representative is the Deputy Secretary of State, Wendy Sherman. Now, Wendy Sherman is a holdover from the Biden administration, who negotiated the Iran nuclear deal, so that speaks for itself. So I think the United States is waiting for some pushback here. Now, what we know now that we didn't know last week is exactly what the United States has planned in the event that there is a move on Moscow's part. And the plan is to disconnect Russian financial institutions from global financial markets or financing. So they're going to cut their banks off, all of them. Then they're going to impose an embargo on Russia, in terms of holding back American goods and American design goods from the Russian defense industry and from the consumers, so they can't buy a refrigerator. And the third thing is, and they made it very, very clear, that the United States will be bankrolling the insurrection, or the people opposing the Russians in Ukraine, so they'll be paying for a guerrilla war. So that's on the table. Now, the Russians aren't buying any of this. My guess is that the Russians will move here, and that they're mainly concerned with cutting Ukrainians off from the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea, so as to bring down the Zelensky government, which become a failed state. And so no one can blame Russia for taking over the borderlands of a failed state. So I think Vladimir Putin has all the cards here. And let me remind you about one thing. We're not pushing Iran around, or Syria, or Cuba. We're pushing around a former superpower with over 6,000 strategic nuclear weapons and thousands of tactical nuclear weapons. And as Barack Obama like to say, Danica, superpowers don't bluff. So there'll be no bluffing here. And so I think our odds of a conflict there have gone up another 10%. Last week I said 60 to 65%. Now we're looking 70, 75%. So buckle up and let's watch.
Oh, we're watching it extremely closely. What sort of response do you think we can expect from the US?
Well, the U.S. is not going to respond militarily. It will make a lot of noise about sanctions, which I've just mentioned, and they will try to bring larger forces to bear in Eastern Europe in terms of NATO troops. They are going to, of course, give the Ukrainians some weapons they haven't had before, like Stinger missiles. So they're going to arm these people up, and of course the Russians will probably hold the Americans accountable for what happens after this. But it's quite clear that Joe Biden has his hands full with COVID and the dagger at the neck of democracy and all the rest of it. Look, the Russians are in the driver's seat here, and they know it. And there's very little that the United States can do about it. And look, already Secretary of State Blinken said that military force is off the table. As soon as the Russians knew that, they knew they could have what they wanted. So I think the Biden administration is going to lose this round, and I think Putin's going to get pretty much what he wants. And what he wants, by the way, is not really unacceptable in terms of the international community. So I think America will probably lose this particular round. And Putin will be sitting pretty for a while, but he's got his own problems in the days ahead.
All right, we will be watching the developments very closely. Professor Joe Siracusa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.